we are here to announce our official candidate for Peter McGill District, as well as to lay out our new environmental policy for all Montrealers. Mouvement Montreal has decided that we are going to take a pragmatic approach to the economic and green relaunch of our city. Today we're announcing that we, in the first 14 days of our administration, is going to implement a very concrete, pragmatic policy. Free STM transportation for all Montrealers 25 and under. And many of you are thinking, what are the costs of this program immediately? $270 million is the cost per year, and it's going to be funded through multiple levels of government, including the provincial government, le Fonds d'électrification et de changement climatique, as well as the Federation of Canadian Municipalities that has a fund, as well as the federal government. This green initiative is going to ensure that Montreal meets its greenhouse target emissions by 2030. And we're also going to ensure that we are going to reduce road congestion. Right now in Montreal, roads are blocked. We have an administration that implemented this mobility squad that gave no force or effect to the congestion of our city. By providing free public transportation for Montrealers 25 and under, we are going to instill quality habits that we hope will trigger the floodgates and get other Montrealers to also take public transportation. And more importantly, above all this, we are going to relaunch the economy. The $270 million that it will cost for this program is going to be an increased buying power for young Montrealers. And moreover, many people will say, what is the cost of pollution? And right now, le ministre du Transport du Québec establishes that pollution costs the city of Montreal $2 billion a year. Providing free public transportation for Montrealers 25 and under will not only be environmentally friendly, but will also save Montrealers when it comes time for the output and the cost of pollution. Throughout Montreal, whether you live in Verdun, Montreal North, Saint-Michel, social exclusion is a problem. So economic mobility is also going to be employment mobility. People will have access to jobs, to education, have access to the cultural centers like right here downtown in Montreal. So this is a comprehensive policy that we hope that the provincial government, the Minister of Environment, Benoit Charette, will support, that they will support the funding of $270 million a year. And this opens the conversation for a broader point. Tax policy. Right now, Montreal has about 35% of Quebec's GDP, close to $270 billion a year. We are asking for Quebec to ensure that Montrealers get their fair share. And Montrealers will demand possibly tax reform to ensure that we provide free public transportation for those 25 and under. Without further ado, I am very happy, very pleased that Mouvement Montreal is going to introduce a candidate who has a proven track record as a community organizer, a candidate that is a woman of action, a candidate that has worked in Peter McGill, studies in Peter McGill, and a candidate that's setting the stage for what it means to be part of Mouvement Montreal, which is not your typical politicians. Everyday Montrealers that are dedicated to change, everyday Montrealers that are dedicated to citizens, and everyday Montrealers that are dedicated to our community. Without further ado, I present to you the candidate for Peter McGill District right here in Ville-Marie, Idil, Issa.
Thank you, Balarama. I am so pleased to be able to tell Montrealers that I am going to be running as the City Councillor candidate for the district of Peter McGill. But before I continue, I'd just like to acknowledge the fact that we are on unceded territory. I would like to share my honor and respect to the nations who are custodians of this land before myself and all Montrealers. So with that said, I am definitely pleased. Mouvement Montréal is a movement for all Montrealers. It is a movement that leaves nobody out. No districts will be neglected under Mouvement Montréal. I myself, as Balarama mentioned, studied at Mcgill University, which is in this district of Peter McGill. I spent a lot of time. A lot of Montrealers know there are great businesses on St. Catherine. As a student, I would spend half my paycheck on St. Catherine. I spent a lot of time in this district. I've worked for the government in this area as well. I know this area like the back of my hand. And, there are disparities in this area as well. North of Sherbrooke is a lot more affluent than south of Sherbrooke. We need more social housing in this district. It's a need that we have here. The median income is lower than other areas of Montreal because you have a lot of students, a lot of people on student visas who are low earners. And so I'm happy to announce my candidacy at the same time as the environmental policy. Our environmental policy is something that is actionable, something that we could implement within the first 100 days of a Holness administration. It's aggressive, it helps us to meet our climate targets, and it's something that won't get pushed forward or delayed. It's something that we can do right away. It's also something that helps our young people. Young people really had to make a lot of sacrifices during this recent period of COVID-19. And this policy really recognizes it and makes them a part of, puts them at the center and the core of policies that will affect their future. So in regards to myself, I'm going to be canvassing this district throughout the summer up until November 7th. I want to meet everyone in this district. You know my face. When you see me in the street, I'm approachable. Come up to me. I want to hear your concerns. I want to hear your preoccupations. We have a beautiful city. We have amazing people in the city, but we just need a team leading the city that understands what our competitive advantages are, how we can make sure that everybody wins in this new economy, post-COVID economy. And I really feel that Mouvement Montréal is the party that can do that.
The free metro for people 25 and under.
Yeah.
This is coming at a time when the SDM's revenues are historically low and the agency is hurting. How exactly do you plan to make up the difference? And is this something that the SDM can afford at this time?
Well, right now, not only are revenues historically low, but ridership is historically low. So by providing free transportation, we are going to ensure that ridership levels increase. And it's not about getting the STM to pay for it. I want to remind everyone that the Montreal GDP is $211 billion. So right now, Montreal is not getting their fair share of compensation for the economy that is booming from this metropolitan city. That's number one. Number two, the STM pays about $30 million a year to Hydro-Québec. So we're going to be asking Hydro-Québec to actually subsidize this cost as well. There's also Le Fonds Vert, which is now the Electrification and Climate Change Fund. That fund has been largely mismanaged, and we're also asking for the provincial government, Benoit Charette, the Minister of Environment, to assist with that funding. There's also the Federation of Canadian Municipalities that has a fund for transportation that we're asking for funding in that regard. And also the federal government has a transit green fund that we're asking. So it's not about getting the STM to provide the transportation cost. The whole point is to get subsidized compensation from all levels of government to contribute to ensure that the STM can provide the service. And last point on that, in 2017, we looked at how much it would cost to get free transportation for all Montrealers, $500 million. And I want to remind everyone again, the GDP is over $200 billion. So the question is, what are the priorities of Montrealers? And is Montreal getting their fair share when it comes to the revenues and the GDP that we're actually generating?
Part of what you just mentioned involves at least two governments that I counted in a Crown corporation outside of Montreal. Do are you confident that you can develop relationships at the provincial, federal, and also at the agency level, let's say, that will be able to make things like this happen?
Absolutely, because Quebec has their targets to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, as well as Montreal. And the MTQ, le ministre du Transport du Québec, evaluated the cost of pollution at 1.8 billion. So it's not just about an expenditure, this is an investment. So I believe Benoit Charette, the Minister of Environment, we are going to be speaking with him in the next few weeks to see that if they're going to support this initiative. And also, great point, all the demerged cities, this affects them. The mayor of Dorval, the mayor of Pointe-Claire, the mayor of Kirkland, the mayor of Westmount. We are going to see if they're also on board. And I think this is going to take actors from all different levels. And we have the Paris Accord, we have the Paris Agreement that the federal government signed on to. So this is a concrete action that we could take right here, right now. And the last point on that, we're not the first. There are 100 cities across the world that have this, including right here in Quebec. Candiac, Saint-Julie had similar programs. So this is not an innovative idea that we woke up one morning that we're implementing. This is something that many municipalities across the world are asking for. Why is this beneficial for all Montrealers? 37% of single-parent homes have children who live in poverty. So if you are a mother or a father and you're a single parent, you no longer have to pay for the transportation of your son or daughter. So this is going to be revenue directly injected back into the pockets of families, not just people who are 25 and under, but of parents as well. There was also a program from the STM that provided some transportation for low-income kids to take field trips. This also circumvents that hurdle. So now we don't have to worry about whether you can go to see the museum or come to the jazz festival, because this is going to be solved through and through. And the last critical point that I really want to mention in regards to the benefits is that free transit provides access to your employment, to education, provides access to cultural spheres, and limits social exclusion. Once again, if you live on the periphery of the island, it's very difficult to actually attain the economic and cultural arteries of the city. So by providing free public transportation, you're connecting all Montrealers to the benefits of le quartier des spectacles, of all the economic benefits of the city and what we have to offer. The $270 million goes back into the pockets of Montrealers, and it expands their buying power. So this money is not lost. And I would like to draw a clear line today between Mouvement Montréal and the other parties. We are having a program that is not only green and economically viable, we are injecting money back into the pockets of Montrealers. And that is the first of its kind. We are not proposing a pink line. We are not proposing a black line. We are not drawing any lines on paper. We are providing concrete examples for young people just like this as they get older to have free public transportation, so they don't have to worry about being socially excluded, and they can take that money and inject it back right into our economy. Why not have public transportation for everyone? The 100 municipalities across the world that had free public transportation, they started somewhere. We are starting with 6 to 25 because under 6 is free, and that's a starting point. Over time, we want public transportation to be free for all Montrealers, but we need to start somewhere, and this is where we're starting. Transportation should be seen as a service, as a right, the same way healthcare is, and the same way education is. This is just a beginning. And I want to reiterate, the cost in 2017 for free public transportation for all Montrealers was $500 million. That number is higher 4 years later. We could do that assessment, call it 550 million approximately. That, in our view at Mouvement Montreal, is a reasonable cost to ensure that we decongest our roads and that we actually meet our greenhouse gas targets. Right now, we are not meeting our targets, the roads are clogged, and the economy is lagging. What party is proposing a concrete, practical green solution that we can implement within the first 100 days of the mandate? Mouvement Montreal is the only party advancing this. Ensemble Montréal has no plan, and Projet Montréal Well, the plan's on paper. The pink line is off the record, or excuse me, the pink line is off the table because of le REM de l'Est. So this is the only pragmatic policy that's being put forth that any party has to offer. Vote for Mouvement Montréal.